Okay, so Teresa, we're gonna do a video today, but I want you to tell people I'm a nice boss. So how much is it gonna cost?
Probably 1,000.
My goodness. Do I have that much? Hey! Okay, here you go.
Great.
Wait, the camera's rolling? Just kidding, give me that money back. Guys, today I got Teresa with me. Glad to have you here.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here, boss.
Thank you so much. So let people know what you do at Purple Cow.
Well, what I do here is digital marketing for this guy over here. And yeah, and I'm also the princess and the muse, so.
That's right, that's in her job description. I don't think that's in your job description.
Well, I'm gonna be adding it anyway.
Okay.
On my LinkedIn profile at least.
All right, welcome to my live, people. You're getting to know Teresa already. What we decided to do today is that we are bringing some lunch for each other. Do you have your lunch bag with you?
Yeah, I do.
All right, let me see your lunch bag. All right, and we're gonna switch.
Okay.
All right.
There we go.
So what we have here is that we each prepared some different questions for each other about working with a foreigner boss and working with Filipino employees. Ladies first.
Ooh, burger. No. What don't foreigner bosses understand about working with Filipinos? Okay.
And you have to answer honestly.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so this is just going to be from my perspective and what I get from my friends. I'm not speaking for everyone in general, but I think something that foreigner bosses don't really understand when working with Filipinos is the values.
Like what, like family or
yeah,
what kind
family
of
values. Because oftentimes I would hear foreigners complaining like, what, that's just your grandma died and so you can't come to work.
People really say that to you?
Yeah, I've had an experience once when I worked with like a different company in the past where they told me that I can't take a leave because my grandma was sick and I needed to be there. But because she wasn't like a direct family member like my mom or my dad, so I wasn't allowed to leave. Some, not everyone, some foreigner bosses would think that, you know, you're just making that excuse or that's your grandma, so that's too far from the family line or whatever.
Right.
So yeah, you can't go. Yeah.
So fair enough. So sometimes foreigners don't really understand
Yeah.
how much Filipinos are going to put family first.
And I think it's just the cultural difference. And sometimes it's often overused as an excuse, even though it's not real. So I think that could be one thing or one factor why foreigners just don't accept it.
Sure.
Yeah.
So what would you say to foreigner bosses that want to be understanding if there's a genuine problem with family, but they know they've maybe been lied to 5,000 times before about that? How can a foreigner tell if somebody's telling the truth or not?
It's really just have some proof. Like, you can only have 2 sets of grandparents. Providing a medical certificate for when we are sick, but if that's your excuse, like your grandma is sick or your mom is sick, then also provide a medical certificate for your mom. So you know, to prove it to your boss. That way, the next time, you know, you make that as an excuse, your boss can check whether that's really a thing or not.
Yeah,
really.
I got it. Because I got to say, as a foreigner boss, these are not issues I ever had to deal with before here. So, you know, it's helpful to kind of see your perspective on those things.
Yeah, that's just my perspective, guys. Don't come get me. Anyway.
All right, time for me to open my lunch?
Yeah, you're gonna love it.
All right, let's see what we got. Pink and everything.
Like Barbie.
Give our Filipino job hunters a tip or some advice to successfully land a job with a foreigner. All right, so this is a kind of a big question, but what I would say is that if there's Filipinos out there that want to really impress someone that is a foreigner boss, that they're interviewing with, that it really starts from the very beginning. So often when people apply for jobs, like say we post something on Facebook or wherever it happens to be, people will often just ask one-word questions like how or why. That's really super common here. So I would say just ask will first kind of read through the job ad to make sure that you actually see if the answer is there or not. So show that you've taken some effort and ask kind of more meaningful questions. And also, so often I'll get people applying by email and they'll just maybe attach a resume. They won't have any cover letter, anything like that, just like an empty email. And I don't even know what they're applying for half the time, or our recruiters don't know. So I would definitely say, like, just have more thoughtful cover letters, ask more thoughtful questions. If the interview is for a specific time, show up on foreigner time, which means if the interview is at 9 a.m., show up at 8:50 a.m. and just be there, ready to go. Feel comfortable talking to the foreigner. Sometimes I think people look at me like I'm from another planet. And I don't want to make people feel uncomfortable, but I think often foreigners are looking at, if I worked with this person from day to day, would they be comfortable talking to me? Because communication is so important for foreigners as well. And really be confident about sharing what you're good at. I think Filipinos are so humble. Often if they're asked, what are your main areas of expertise, they're going to be so humble when they really know that they're good at things. And just be, honest.
Okay, next question. So what are most difficult things working with a foreigner? So I think it would be the language barrier. Because not everyone here in the Philippines grew up speaking English, or was spoken in English to the moment they were born. So of course it's not our mother tongue. It's like a second language that we learn in school. So there's that whole process thing going on when someone is talking to you in a different language that you understand, but it has to go into your brain, and then you have to translate that thing they're saying into Filipino so that you can answer it in English. So your Filipino answer in your brain has to be translated back to English so that you can talk to them. So there's a whole communication or language barrier going on with that. So sometimes it's very frustrating when you're talking to someone and it takes so long for you to get a response. So I think that is something. And it's also kind of frustrating when your boss, your foreigner boss, is asking you a question and you don't get it the first time, and your boss is like, are you stupid or something, or are you dumb or something?
So let me ask you this about communication, because anybody listening to right now, and me from day to day, feels like you have perfect English. And so that would be surprising even to me to hear you have to translate English, to, Visaya, and then, back to English. So how much of it is the actual words, and how much of it is communicating things that you think a foreigner boss would understand culturally?
I'm actually just speaking on behalf of friends, because I actually grew up speaking the language since I was young.
So it's more general how Filipinos in general
how
maybe
most
feel.
of them really feel. When I used to work in different call centers, we do have language training where they teach us how to speak in English, and that's always the tip. You have to think in English in order to reply in English, just so that your brain would get used to it. But for me, because I grew up speaking the language, it wasn't really difficult. It's not very difficult for me to understand anyone. It's just automatic on my brain, where I receive it in English, I reply in English. It's just,
I feel better, because that's what I would have thought with you, but definitely I could see that for some people that's really a struggle. Different businesses that I go to, sometimes I could tell people are really looking at me like, why do I get the foreigner that I have to talk to now? And sometimes with people that come to interviews as well, HR will let them in my office to be interviewed by the CEO, and I'll just see their shoulders drop, why today do I got to be interviewed by a foreigner?
Why him?
Yeah, I think that they're really concerned about the language, side of it. Overwhelmingly though, I think for foreigners, people just speak, perfectly fine over here. Maybe some of the older generation and some of the younger generation as well, but overwhelmingly people should be really confident about it.
Yeah, I think so too.
All right. Let's see what else is in the lunchbox. The next question is, would you judge an employee or a candidate about how proficient they are in their job based on how they look? That's a good question. Do you mean if they have like a million tattoos like you, or something different?
Yeah, or maybe they just don't dress professionally like as you would expect in
Sure.
most settings.
For me, first impression matters a little bit, but who they are as a person matters 100 times more, to me. So for me, don't really worry too much about that. But I guess it kind of depends. I would think that somebody would think, especially in Filipino culture, which sometimes could be so conservative with how you dress. Like even our office building, I can't even wear like sandals or shorts in here technically, or they wouldn't let me in the building. So that's really conservative, and so many places are like that. So maybe actually if I saw somebody that was, dressed like in their pajamas or, something like that, I think like, really? But really, like, if they come in with like orange colored hair,
Yay.
like you when you came here, and tattoos, different stuff like that, I could really care less. It's really a lot more about person, and as long as they're dressed, kind of moderately, professionally, totally no problem at all.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I wouldn't go to an interview or to work, just wearing what we call here pambahay or pambalay.
What does that mean?
Clothes that you wear at home, basically.
Sure.
I wouldn't.
Yeah, for me, I've never even one time, I think, had an applicant come in that wasn't dressed perfectly fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what about when they're already hired and they start working here, and then you just notice that, at first they dress up really nicely, and then like after a few weeks, what is he wearing, or what is she wearing?
Yeah, I really don't worry too much about those type of things personally.
Yeah,
I'm really thinking a lot more about just how they're doing with their actual job and things like that. I think just being in this, where we work, there's kind of like already a dress code with the building itself.
Right.
As long as they make it through the guards coming in, they're going to be more than fine with me.
I actually asked him that question because there are times when I don't really dress up, when I look homeless or I just woke up. So
You never look homeless.
I don't want him to judge me based on me wearing sweatpants to work, so that's why I'm asking him. What is different working with a Filipino boss compared to a foreigner? I think the pay is better, and I think
Which one?
with foreigner bosses. I prefer working with a foreigner. But yeah, I think that's one of the major differences. It's like the pay rate is different. When I worked with a Filipino boss, I have to be very conservative. Really. They really expect you to wear like a button-down shirt or something to work, and like appropriate heels or like closed shoes. Meanwhile, working with a foreigner, I could just wear my jeans, and like what I mentioned earlier, I can wear sweatpants and I'm not being judged. So I think that's it. Oh yeah, another struggle that I had when I tried to apply with Filipino bosses is they're very particular in how you look physically. Colored hair is a no. Your tattoos showing is also a no most of the time. I think a lot of people prefer working with foreigner bosses nowadays.
Would you work with someone who has a long history of job hopping? That's a good question. So definitely sometimes people will hand over resumes and they worked at a lot of companies that are, not easy to get into, and they seem like they have good experience, but, in the last 10 years they've worked at 10 different places. That's a huge red flag for me. Would I work with someone like that? I would definitely ask them about that and why that was. And I would be really slow to hire someone like that, honestly, because I really want people that are going to be with us for the long haul. And even if they do an amazing job for a half a year or a year, far rather just work a bit harder to find someone that would be as good at the job, that would be with us for the next 5 years or 10 years. It's not a hard no that I would never work with someone that had a history of job hopping, but I'd have to really be satisfied by their answer to give them a chance.
Okay. How well do you think Filipinos understand foreigner client expectations? It really depends on the person. It all goes down to that. I think they do understand. They just need to ask the right questions when they're given a task. I think a lot of Filipinos who are working with foreigners are very easy to say yes to a task, even if they don't really understand, or they just need more details in order to, accomplish it, or to, give an output. I would say it's a 50-50. Like 50% would be like, yeah, they can get it the first try, and 50% would be like, they really struggle because they don't ask the questions. Either they are shy, either they weren't listening, or they don't understand at all, or they just don't know what kind of questions they need to ask.
So if you feel like the main reasons why Filipinos maybe sometimes don't understand expectations is because they're too shy or just like a little bit nervous to ask clarifying questions,
Yeah.
what's been your experience? Like if you'll talk to a foreigner boss and say, huh, can you say that again? I don't quite get it. Or, you know, can you explain that to me further? Do you find like the response of foreigner bosses is understanding, or do they, you know, give you a hard time because you don't understand something the first time?
To be honest, they appreciate it more if I ask them. I think all my foreigner bosses have told me like the reason why they like working with me is because I'm not very shy to ask questions. I'm very annoying when I ask questions. I just keep on popping in and out of like either through the messages or just in and out of their office just to make sure I get the details clear so that I can give like a good output.
And I gotta say you're great because you will like take the initiative to write Google Docs with like your goals and what you want to achieve with specific things. That's not ever something I asked you to do, but you just take the initiative to do that. That's a great example. I mean, no matter what country you're in, like I really appreciate that you're really detail oriented with things.
I want to be very transparent so that my boss would know if I'm on the right track, and if he sees on that goals like this isn't part of your job, what are you doing? At least I would know that, okay, I think I'm getting sidetracked here.
Sure.
So I really like being transparent to them. That way, if I'm always asking questions, asking for feedbacks, I would know in myself which part do I need like improvement, which part do I need to retain, or you know, or just completely remove because I'm not being productive.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Next question. What are your top 3 Filipino employee pet peeves? I only have 3? No, I'm just kidding.
Go on.
So top 3, maybe just like too many excuses about things that really make sense to people culturally here. But for me, I'm like, get to work. I don't want to hear your excuses.
Yeah.
So that's probably number 1 and number 2 and number 3, but I won't cheat. Number 2 is not naturally working hard enough at just continuously improving whatever skills they have. Number 3, I don't know. I love working with people here, so it's hard to think. But number 3.
Just think of the people you fired.
All right, and then the third one, maybe just, Filipino time.
Yeah.
Not always being on time with things.
Understandable.
Yeah. Yes. All right, you're up next.
Okay. Okay, this is related to
I'm
your
in
third
trouble.
answer. Why are Filipinos always late? Why are we always late, guys? Filipino time. No, I'm just kidding. Because we're very relaxed, I guess, and we don't really mind. I mean, this is generally speaking, not just for work. Maybe even like meeting
For
up
sure,
with
it's
people.
all of life.
Yeah, it's like the Filipino way of life. Like I'm not proud of it. Like that it's become like something very culturally embedded. We also don't mind waiting for people who we make plans with. Like we plan to meet at 9:15 and they arrive at 10. We don't mind. Like we can wait. But we often forget that it's not the same and it shouldn't be like that. You shouldn't make anyone wait.
So now I know the reason.
Yes.
All right, my turn. How many chances would you give an employee before deciding to fire them? At least 2. No, I'm just kidding. It really depends. So for me, I've had employees that I hired, they seemed great in the interview process, and then they started their first day and I already wanted to fire them. And
Did you want to fire me? Not yet.
Secret. No, I'm just kidding. Of course not. But, every once in a while there's been people that were amazing during the interview process, and then by the first day, they were just like on their phone all the time watching YouTube and like clearly not caring about the work. They just cared about getting the job. So every once in a while I'll be like, oh, we really made a huge mistake with this person, and I will literally want to fire them the first day. Most people though, it really depends. Like I don't want to ever fire anyone, even though I got to from time to time. But for me, it really depends on the person and seeing how much they care. So I've had employees that have started off and they weren't they didn't have the level of capabilities that I thought they would, or they were just a bit slow in getting things done, but I could really tell they were going above and beyond, really trying to learn, how to do a better job as quick as possible, and they were really trying to, increase their skills and improve and asking great questions. I could really be patient with that type of person. But if somebody just has a really bad, attitude, and they're causing struggles with our clients or with employees, that person's not going to get too many chances before I want to say, bye, bye, bye. So it really depends on the person and how much they care.
Right.
There you go. Well, thank you so much for giving us some answers. I hope some of my answers have been helpful as well.
Very helpful. I'm not going to get fired here.
That's right. At least not today. Just kidding.
Not today, maybe tomorrow.
Definitely not tomorrow. Well, guys, thank you so much for watching. Hope you've learned a thing or two as we have. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch, and take care.